What is the difference between toner and astringent? Also, is astringent even still really a thing? Hi, my name is Amanda McIntosh. I'm the founder of Take My Face Off, which is a reusable skincare, awesome washcloth product company. And I have this amazing friend named Stephanie Thompson, and I've known her for years. And she has all sorts of cool credentials. But the reason I'm talking to Stephanie is because she has this amazing talent with skincare and stuff. It's like she can see the future. She'll tell me about something that's skincare related, and 10 years later, it will be like the mainstream of what everybody is like, oh, here's the new news on skin. Stephanie told me back forever, and everything she's ever told me has wound up being true. I kid you not. Is she a dermatologist or esthetician? No, that's the crazy thing. She's just the smartest person I know. She actually has a couple of fancy degrees, one of which is science. And dermatology is not her actual field. But guess what? We're not like telling you how to do open heart surgery or whatever the skin equivalent would be. We're just talking about a really low stakes topic here, which is toner versus astringent. And so even though Stephanie doesn't have an official dermatology credential, she's actually amazing at explaining things. And she's really good at summarizing and breaking down the things into sciencey parts that normal people can understand. So Stephanie, do me a favor and tell us your very cool title. And then maybe you can tell me about what you do.
Okay. Hi, Mandy. Thanks for having me here. My very cool title is Certified Nutrition Specialist, which is my most recent cool title. So what I do is use food and targeted nutrients to help people find health again. And for me, I have a couple of different things I like to do. I love to work with women's health and hormones and thyroid and just trying to figure out why women are experiencing fatigue and low energy and mood swings and all of those kinds of things. That's one of the things I really enjoy doing. Also, kind of talking about nutrition for improved mood and mental health and all of those things. So those are some of the things that I like to do. We're talking today about astringent and tonant. I like to play with my food. So I kind of like to experiment with things, which is I think this is how this all came about, right?
It is. I kept asking you questions and you had such amazing answers. I was like, let's do a video. I'll put Stephanie's website in the comments at the end here. But so the other day you gave me a really good description of what does the word astringent mean? And then kind of like what is the product then? The definition is a little bit different from the actual liquid.
Yeah, so I think, when we talk about astringent, I always think about, I don't know if I can say this. I won't say the thing I always think about. I think back to my junior high days and trying to mop up oil off my face. But so astringent is a couple things. Astringent is actually it's a taste, right? It's one of the qualities, like we have sweet, sour, and all that. Astringent is kind of a slightly bitter, maybe slightly acidic taste, and which makes sense when you kind of think about where we get astringents from. When we're talking about skincare and we're talking about astringent, I think what we all think back to is like rubbing alcohol because the astringents, like the of my youth, had rubbing alcohol as a main ingredient. But astringent is really the way an astringent works is it kind of contracts your cells, and it does it by removing water.
And so you're talking about stuff like sea breeze, Clearasil.
I wasn't sure if I could even say that, but yeah.
I think it's helpful to be clear as to exactly what we're talking about. So that's what we're talking about, those thin liquids that you put on a cotton ball, then you wipe all over your face. Because I guess, that was what what's that?
To mop up oil.
It was marketed to us back then, and sometimes it's still marketed that the reason we had acne was partially because of too much oil. And so the key to controlling acne was to get rid of all that oil. But then you're the first person who explained to me something that at the time seemed counterintuitive. This is one of those Stephanie told me years later, everybody's like, oh yeah, that's totally true. It's like, oh, that's where I heard it first. Stephanie, was that controlling oil in that way was actually counterproductive. That what did your skin do if you just try and take it off?
It's going to overcompensate. So we end up with all this excessive dryness on the top of our skin, with our, oil glands trying to pump out more sebum because it's getting the messages like everything's dry up there, everything's dry up there. So we're pumping out more oil, when, that's not, I don't think that's accurate, right? For most people in combating acne per se.
Yeah. For me, it certainly never worked, and it didn't make my skin feel very good. And it was part of a whole crazy cycle of like breakouts and then irritation and stuff. Because I feel like it's helpful to remember that acne is actually an inflammatory response. When you explained that to me the first time, I was like, oh, okay, this is making more sense. So this is not just about acne, but I find that part fascinating. And also, hey, if you're a person for whom sea breeze or Clarisol or something like that worked, then great. I mean, if it works, keep it up. Doesn't matter. But I find this kind of like intellectually interesting. So if we kind of now know that drying your skin out and rubbing alcohol on the skin surface is not a great thing, can you kind of like briefly explain why where does toner come into this? What's the difference? Was there a product change? Were they just renaming things? What happened?
Well, obviously I'm not in the cosmetics industry, so I don't really know that, but I sort of think of, I think in general, our skincare has gotten away from things that are harsh. Cleansers are different now, right? They used to be very alkaline and they're not now. And we know that we have an acid mantle to our skin and we need to protect that barrier.
Wait, let's talk about this for just a second. It is really interesting that there's tons of stuff on the market now that says gentle. I feel like back then there was almost nothing. And back then, 20, 30 years ago, I feel like there was almost nothing that was called gentle. There were cleansers, there were soaps, there were, oil reducing soaps, there were drying soaps, there was acne control soap. There was nothing that specifically said gentle. And now we have an entire, like 4 different product categories of things that are gentle. I don't actually think that most people are aware yet of the acid mantle. Can you briefly explain that to us?
Not really. Not very well.
You're too humble. You have explained this stuff to me a million times. Well, can I say it, and can you correct me where I'm wrong?
Sure.
Okay. So that my understanding is that that acids are actually kind of good at combating the bacteria that cause acne. That's just part of it. And that everybody's skin has kind of like a base acidity level. And that actually, so that's the pH level, the degree to which you are alkaline or base. Alkaline or base, is that right? Okay, mm-hmm. I'm not a chemist. And I don't play one on TV or anything. So this pH balance of our skin kind of has a lot to do with how healthy the skin is and how well it's functioning. And so maintaining a healthy pH balance is just one part of kind of keeping everything consistent and regulated and happy. And gentle cleansers are less likely to mess up that pH level. They're less likely to basically switch our skin from being more acidic to more basic. We kind of want it to be more acidic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's great. And I would just say that, we have it's a rather narrow range. The pH is a rather narrow range. And we really don't want to disrupt that, because think of your skin is your barrier between you and all of your organ system and the outside world. So we don't want to disrupt that barrier, and we want a little bit acidic. And again, like the soaps that you're talking about, they made us very alkaline, right? Which is again, things evolve, science evolves, and we learn more and more about how to combat these things, and how to do this internally with nutrition and those kind of things. But yeah, so I like the way you explained it.
Okay, well, I tend to get lots of details wrong. But even though it's a little bit hard for me to always conceptualize, I feel like it's super helpful. So it seems like toners are kind of like the flip side. Instead of drying your skin out, now we have a liquid that can feel similar and come in a bottle that's similar and it has a use that's similar, but it's doing something totally different. Is that true?
Sort of true. So toners, to me, I think I even told you this, they're like the new woke term for we don't say astringent anymore, or not very many products, say astringent, but many toners have astringent properties in them, and that can be a good thing, right? The tightening, we like our skin, we like the skin cells to lie nice and flat and it feels very refreshing. But something can be slightly astringent and feel good on the skin, as opposed to very astringent and feel not so good on the skin. So some natural astringents, which you and I have talked about, if you want me to go there now. Let's
talk about the difference between toner and astringent for just a minute longer, because I feel like one topic I want to make sure we mention is the fact that lots of things that say toner are kind of actually astringents. They just change the name. And how, like, if I were in a drugstore and I were picking up a product, how would I know if I want to avoid using super harsh alcohol on my face? What do I do? What do I look for?
So look at the ingredients and don't buy the ones that have alcohol in them, right? Because usually the ones that are more harsh have alcohol pretty high up on the ingredient list, like in the first 3-4 ingredients, some kind of alcohol. Toners to me are sort of giving back a little bit to the health of the skin. They will tend to have hydrating ingredients as well as astringent ingredients, rather than just flat out alcohols and other astringents, menthols and things that we used to have. You may see some astringents in there, but toners are going to have some hydrating ingredients too.
So what would some of those hydrating ingredients be? What should a person look for on a label?
So things like aloe, things like other humectants, even oils.
Humectants. What are some more humectants? Because I feel like I wouldn't know what those are.
Humectants are things that hold water, like you'll see rice water sometimes in toner. The humectants attract water to your skin. They bring water to your cells. Again, I honestly haven't bought a toner in a store for years, because I tend to make my own things, because like I said, I like to play with my food. So I will tell you that when I make toners, which is something I'm more familiar with than commercial ingredients, things like teas that have tannins can be slightly astringent. Witch hazel can be slightly astringent.
So witch hazel is good. You'd kind of say, like, if I know you don't like to slap good and bad labels on things, but if you had to, would you call witch hazel good?
I would say that witch hazel is a preferable ingredient in a slightly astringent toner than alcohol.
Okay.
And it's more natural too. It's from a plant.
Yeah.
Just saying. Juices like pomegranate juice, that's, antibacterial, slightly astringent, things like that. So those are astringent things that I tend to use when I want something more humectants. Honey, Manuka honey particularly is really good. Has lots of antimicrobial properties, holds moisture, very healing. Aloe, rose water. I tend to look for those kinds of things when depending on what kind of concoction I'm making.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah. So Stephanie is a skincare addict. Forgive me for saying that, but she's learned so much about how some of this stuff works. She's so humble that she's lately started making a couple of her own products, although mostly I think she generally enjoys buying them like most of us do. But toners are kind of, as she explained them to me, very do-it-yourselfable, very manageable. And so actually she put together some fantastic recipes, and I'm going to have the link for how you can get those recipes in the comments. So if you want to see how Stephanie makes toners, it'll be right there. It's really simple. The instructions are really interesting. It's okay. So let's summarize a few things here. Toner is kind of in vogue at the moment. Lots of products that are astringent are not calling themselves astringents because they realize that they've fallen a bit out of favor. And the actual extremely astringent astringents maybe are not the best thing for us, is kind of what we're saying. If you disagree, I would actually love to hear from you, because again, we're actually not dermatologists or estheticians. We're just super interested in this. And, we have watched skincare information change so much over the past couple of decades. And we were paying attention because we really, really wanted answers to questions, problems, the things that were bothering us. And so this is really interesting. And it seems quite logical actually when you think about skin being a protective barrier to the rest of your body, and it's something that you want to nourish and take care of instead of beat up on. So any last words for people? Because I bet a lot of people are going to check out your recipes, but if they're just buying one in the store, anything else that they should be avoiding when they're looking for it? And I will also say, one of the things I like about this topic is that being gentle to your skin is actually great for all skin types. There's lots of information about skincare that is only for this skin type or that skin type. Like retinoids are only for certain skin types. All sorts of things are very specific for specific needs. But being gentle to your skin and hydrating it as opposed to stripping it of all of the oil is actually something that's fantastic for all skin types. And so if you're one of those people who has been, I would say beating up on your skin, but really drying it too much, being too harsh with it, then this is very relevant information for you. And even not being a dermatologist, I can pretty confidently say that that's true for practically everybody. So if a person is like, okay, I'm going to check out a toner now. Also one more question. If a person isn't using a toner because they're like, that's just wasted money, I don't have enough time, what would you say? Would you want to change that person's mind?
Maybe. It depends, it really depends. I think largely it depends on how you're cleansing your skin too. Okay. Again, toners can help bring everything back into balance. So some people just like how refreshing it is to feel like they're getting the last traces off. Like for instance, I oil cleanse, you know this about me. So sometimes I want to just follow up with a little bit of toner to make sure, and most of my toners have humectants in them at this stage in my skin's life. But I might want to follow up with something like that just to make sure that all the traces of, the oil that I used to remove the day, makeup, sunscreen, all of those things is off my face. It feels fresh. My skin's ready to accept like whatever moisturizer, or if I want to use, a retinol kind of formula, my skin is ready to accept it. So I might say try it. I think that people who feel
when you say ready to accept it, can you kind of like put that in layman's terms for me? How does that make your skin more ready to accept something?
So, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. So I know that I've taken all of like the day, take my face off. I've taken all of my face off from the day. And I know that my cells are clean. They've been naturally exfoliated from when I use my Mitty, which I do, from when I use my Mitty. And so I've got a good surface to work on. To me, I guess I can equate it to painting. I'm not going to paint a wall in my room that I haven't first cleaned and prepped, make sure that the holes are filled in with spackle. I don't want any excess oils on there because the paint's not going to go adhere to the wall well. It's sort of like prep work. And I think that toner just kind of cleans up the last traces of maybe missed makeup. For me, I don't know if anybody else is like this, but for me, I will oil cleanse, take off my mascara. I'll still have a little bit of mascara. So I might just use the littlest bit of toner to like the ones that I use to just get the remnants of whatever mascara is there. I make sure that I go around my jawline and make sure, because that's, did I get all of that well? So I tend to use toner that way to just balance things out. I don't know if that answers the question.
It does. And I'd also heard before that some of the ingredients in toner can actually make skin a little bit like more absorbent. And so somehow it like literally kind of like takes in more of whatever cream you're putting on next. Does that make sense? I don't know scientifically why that would be true.
That's kind of interesting. I think that might, just from my perspective, it's just like removing anything that's in the way of absorption.
Okay, interesting.
I don't know.
Got it. I feel like a question just occurred to me, and it was, we were asking if a person's going to go to the store and they're going to get a toner. And look for this, don't look for that, and be very specific, like specific ingredients, things, brands and stuff maybe they should look for or not look for.
Okay. So, as I said, I've been doing my own for such a long time that I'm probably not the best person to ask, but I will say, if I were going to go and do this, I look for short ingredient lists. I look for honestly plant ingredients and food ingredients. when I buy toners. And I look for brands that use those kinds of things. I don't know if you want my recommendations for brands that I like.
Yeah, give me a couple. I'm interested.
I really like the My Shell brand. I've liked every product I've tried of theirs.
Anytime anybody asks me for like just a blanket recommendation, I'm always like, you know what? You really cannot go wrong with My Shell ever. And we have no relationship to My Shell whatsoever. Don't know them, nothing. We just, it's just been good for so long.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like their ingredients are pretty minimal and pretty clean. I also like to buy cruelty free as much as possible. I consider the packaging. I will also put in a shameless, it's not really a shameless plug because it's not my website, but if you're interested in the quality and greenness of your products, check out Environmental Working Group's Skin Deep part of their site, because everything is ranked as far as the quality of the ingredients, anything that those ingredients are linked to. I refer to them all the time. No, not everything is there because the world is just too big, but you will find a surprising amount of things. And if there's an ingredient that you see that you don't know what it is this good? Is it bad? What the heck is it? You can pop it into that website and it'll tell you about that ingredient. So
yeah, I'll put the link to that in the comments as well. That's ewg.org. That's a very useful site. Okay, cool. Well, I just realized that I had not given myself a shameless plug. The reason I'm doing this video, I'm in skincare. TakeMyFaceOff.com is my company. I made a product called the Mitty because I was looking for something that basically was like, I wanted to create the world's greatest skincare fabric. I was annoyed that everything that we use, like cotton balls and washcloths, they weren't actually good for skincare. Like, why were we using these things with our expensive toners or cleansers that weren't good and they were scratchy? And anyway, so I found a great fabric. I turned it into a great shape, and that's my product. And so astringents and toners are a big topic for me because I use my product to apply them, and I've just been more and more interested in that whole area for quite a while. Here's an example of a Mitty. It's unbelievably soft. It literally seems to last forever. We don't know. It has a pointy tip that can get into little places like the lash line. And it actually, so when you put something like toner on here, it's a fabric that's thinner, but super high quality. And so it kind of spreads the toner around and then it releases this back to your skin. Where something like cotton is very absorbent, and it takes that liquid and it kind of hogs it and it pulls it back into like the cotton ball or the cotton pad. And so less of it's touching your skin. So with a Mitty, more of it actually reaches your skin. So it's gentler, and then you're actually not wasting as much of the toner and putting it in the trash. You're actually putting it back on your face. So that's my interest in this whole topic.
I can totally attest to that. I love the Mitty for toner. It's one of my favorite things. Toner, micellar water, anything, because you can use so much less. I mean, it just stretches your products so well. And as far as how long they last, I don't even want to tell you how old some of my Mittys are.
You got some of the first ones that I sewed by hand. Oh my gosh, you're the greatest. You were so nice. I handed you this and it's like, can you test it? And you were like, what is this? You're my friend, so you tried them, but you still have them, right? Years and years later?
I still have them. And in fact, just here. So I'm just drying a bunch of them now on my little bookcase thing because I washed a bunch of them, but these are old, man. I have used these and used these and used these. And they don't wear out, and I machine wash them and they come out clean and great and totally worth it. Love them.
You're awesome. We'll have the link to that because they come in lots of colors and sizes in the comments. And so Stephanie, if you ever want to talk to Stephanie more, you can reach her at wellnola.com because she's in New Orleans. I'm in LA, by the way. So wellnola.com. But we'll have the links down there. And thank you, Stephanie. And if you don't mind, I will have you back another time because you're so humble. But really, like I said earlier, nothing you've ever told me, if I researched it further somewhere, it was never untrue. It was never wrong. Everything you told me winds up being correct. And you always seem to give me just the succinct, most relevant summary on huge, complicated topics. So thank you again for doing that today. You're a delight to talk to, and quit being so humble. And thank you guys for joining. And I'll put all the other good stuff in the comments. Thanks. Bye.
I'm a Mitty,
Thanks, Mandy.
Mitty, 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 better than a cotton ball.